Welcome to the MYS Virtual Hangout. Here's your host, MYS Music Director, Raúl Gómez.
Welcome to episode 64 of the MYS Virtual Hangouts. My guest tonight is Katie Palka. She is an MYS alumna. She is currently going to USC Thornton School of Music for composition. And we, MYS, have commissioned and performed 3 pieces by Katie. So I'm excited to catch up with her and talk about each one of those pieces. Katie Palka, it's so good to see you. Welcome to this MYS Virtual Hangout.
Hi, it's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. First of all, I want to congratulate you on the world premiere of Flock, the piece that you wrote for the Metropolitan Youth Symphony as part of the Youth Orchestra Commissioning Initiative. I loved your piece. People watching the concert loved it, and I thought the MYS Concert Orchestra did a beautiful job recording it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Glad
Yeah,
you enjoyed it. It was really fun listening.
very nice, very nice. And before I ask you anything else, where in the world are you right now?
I'm in upstate New York in the Adirondack Mountains in a bunch of snow.
Oh, right. It must be pretty snowy still up there. Wow.
Yes,
And how long have you been there?
I've been here for over a year now. I
Okay.
came here during spring break last year from college, and I haven't gone back since.
Only virtually, right?
Yes.
And where are you going to college?
The University of Southern California, Thornton School of Music.
Yes, for music composition.
Yes.
So is this then your second year? You're
Yes.
getting close to the end of your second year. And what a year,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you were a violinist and violist, actually,
Mm-hmm.
with the Metropolitan Youth Symphony here in Portland, Oregon, for a long time, right?
Yeah.
You grew up here. Uh, your mom is awesome, and send her my best,
I will.
Annette. So why don't let's just go back in time before we
Mhm.
talk about your college experience and all the exciting things you're doing. Let's just go back in time, and will you share how you even got started in music?
Yeah. Well, neither of my parents play music. My mom played clarinet for a short period of time in middle school band, but hasn't kept up since. But when I was about 2 or 3, my parents took me to see a ballet. And at intermission, we went down and saw the orchestra pit and the musicians there. And I saw somebody playing the guitar, and I thought, "Whoa, that's really cool. I want to do that."
The guitar. Okay, and was
Yeah,
that here in Portland?
yes, in Portland
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Yeah. But my parents couldn't find anybody who would teach guitar to a 2 or 3-year-old. Um, so time went by a little bit, and I found out that my cousin had started violin, who's a year older than me, and my grandma had played violin a little bit. I was like, okay, well, it has strings too. It's kind of similar, right? So when I was 5, I started lessons on violin, and that's where I've gone ever since.
Who was your first teacher?
Tamara Theodosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what other violin teachers did you have while in Portland?
Yeah, I also studied with Clarice Atchison and Tomas Kotek at
Nice.
PSU.
Yes. Yes. Wow. I wonder, what your life would be like if you had started on the guitar.
Yes, it's
Who
really
knows,
interesting to think
right?
about. I feel like
You know,
I would be composing a different kind of music for sure.
right. But hey, so you think you'd be composing anyways.
Yeah, probably.
So hey, yeah. And how old were you when you started with the Metropolitan Youth Symphony?
I was 9 and I started in Vivaldi strings.
Okay. So you auditioned into one of our intermediate groups. You didn't quite start from the younger groups because you had already been playing for some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so you were 9 and you played with MYS all the way through the end of, high school
Hmm.
years. So, 8, 9 years or so,
Yeah.
about like half of your life before you
Hmm.
left for California. So tell us a little bit about that experience and the impact that it had on your sort of like day to day, but also maybe big picture.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was like when I first started, it was very different than anything I had done before because I'd played with like a little bit of chamber music, like string quartets or groups of violins. Um, and like I was a Suzuki kid, so like there was a lot of like group class kind of like playing with other violins. But like to be able to play with such a big group of people and then eventually like such a broad range of instruments was like something that I had never experienced before. And just like being in that big amount of sound is just like a totally awe-inspiring kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, Vivaldi strings, that first group you played with, is only strings, right?
Hmm.
So what's your first full orchestra experience with the MYS Concert Orchestra?
Yes, yeah,
Do
it
you
was.
have any memories of how it felt, having winds and brass compared to just strings?
Um, I don't remember that much of that part of my life, but I do remember that it was just like grand and kind of, I don't know, sweeping
Yeah,
of a feeling to be surrounded by so much sound. You
sure,
just sort of get
sure.
carried away by it.
Yeah. Well, and you, Katie, were one of very few MYS musicians who entered our most advanced symphony orchestra at a pretty early age. So you
Hmm.
were in that top orchestra. I mean, at the very least, I came to MYS in 2017, and I think you had
Hmm.
already been in the top orchestra maybe 1 year.
Yeah, I think I don't remember if it was like I want to say eighth grade, sometime
Sure.
around then.
Yeah.
Uh, I think my first year was like the last year with Mr. Lopera, and then
Okay. So that
yeah,
was two full seasons before I even came here.
yeah.
So that's pretty remarkable that you were in this top orchestra for so many years. And when I came into my role with MYS, you were there along with
Hmm.
all of your uh, MYS classmates, your generation of
Hmm.
MYS and Misfits, our advanced string ensemble, a wonderful group of young musicians who are now all over the country going to
Hmm.
college or conservatory, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then all throughout this experience, you discovered composition. How did that happen?
Hmm. Um, well, I feel like my first experience with composition, I wouldn't have called composition at the time. Like from when I was really little, I had ideas of like snippets of melodies and little bits of music that I wanted to find a way to write down. Um, some of it, which I sort of was trying to write down before I really knew fully how to read and notate music.
Wow,
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
like when I was in when I was in kindergarten, we were studying beavers in our class and just like how what their life cycle and sort of like uh, everything about beavers. And so I wrote this piece on construction paper called "Oh Little Beaver," which had like staff lines and a mix of like letter names and other lines, not like full note heads, but it was just sort of my attempt at capturing this sort of idea in my head. Um,
You
yeah,
created your own notation.
yeah,
That's what you did in
yeah,
kindergarten.
yeah. Yeah. And I kept writing down snippets and then like I don't remember how old I was. Sometime in elementary school I started taking fiddle lessons with Betsy Branch and like I learned a lot of like ear skills, as well as how to like actually write down like the musical ideas that came to me, and how to use Sibelius, and how to like think of a harmony for something, and
And
a lot
Sibelius
of really,
being the music notation software, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, do you still have that beaver piece, like that construction
Yeah,
paper somewhere? You
probably
do.
somewhere. My mom might have it.
Well, if that's not framed yet, you need to frame
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And when did you start getting formal training in composition?
Yeah. I started taking like actual composition lessons with Kenji Bunch. I think it was like, I want to say eighth grade. Um, and I started YCP not long after, which
Yes, the
was
Young
also really
Composers Project
exciting. Yeah.
from Fear No Music, who
Yeah.
are wonderful partners with the Metropolitan Youth Symphony for The Authentic Voice, which is the program through which we commission pieces from young composers here in Portland, Oregon. And, that partnership, in a way, started with you
Right.
because back in, and I wrote it down, March 4th of 2018, okay, we, the Metropolitan Youth Symphony Orchestra, which is our most advanced group, we premiered a piece that we commissioned from you
Hmm.
called you entitled The Breathing Earth.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, to be honest with you, I don't even remember why or how that ended up happening. I don't remember if I
Yeah.
just thought, hey, do you want to write a piece? Do
I
you ever
don't
remember?
remember very clearly either.
I don't know. I think maybe I learned that you composed and asked to see something from you, and then this happened. So,
Yeah.
regardless of how it happened, this was before The Authentic Voice had officially begun as a
Mhm.
collaboration between the Young Composers Project and MYS. So we played this beautiful piece of music that you wrote. And I actually pulled up the PDF concert program. I have it up right here because I wanted to read just a little bit of your program notes for this piece.
Mhm.
Okay, so you wrote this from the program notes. The Breathing Earth is about our human connection to the environment and the interconnectedness of all living things. And actually, why don't we listen to a little bit of this piece right now and then
Okay,
we'll chat a little bit about it? Yeah? Okay.
sounds
Here
great.
we go. Okay, so that was in March of 2018. Let's talk about this piece specifically, the Breathing Earth. What inspired you to even choose that topic?
I don't remember exactly my thought process at the time, but I do know that like the environment and the climate crisis is something that's been on my mind a lot over the years. Um, Whether it's just because of like loving nature, or even just like how climate change affects us as humans as well. Um, and I think that with my music, I like to write about stuff that really matters to me. Um, Stuff that really, I guess, affects me very deeply, and sort of figuring out how to sort of process that and express that through writing music.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece. It's just gorgeous, and it's just super effective also, I believe, in conveying the message that you're trying to convey. And even from back then, you have these just textures that I just love. You've found these colors and textures in the way that you write. And I think that's something that I see as a common thread with the three pieces that you've written for the Metropolitan Youth Symphony. Let's talk about the second piece
Okay.
of the three, Letter to Florence Price.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was officially part of the Authentic Voice that we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about earlier. And we premiered it on May 21 of 2019. So just about a year after The Breathing Earth. On that program, we also performed Florence Price's Symphony Number 1 in what was believed to be the U.S. West Coast premiere of that piece. Will you talk about this one, Letter to Florence Price?
Yeah. Well, with this piece, I was trying to uh, have it be sort of a way to honor Florence Price and her music. In the end, I even quoted a little bit of her symphony that we were playing the same night. So I tried to have the piece both dialogue directly with her music, particularly the music that was on the shared program, as well as just have it be more a reflection on how far we've come, but how far we still have to go to get to a place where um, all composers can express themselves and have their music valued in the world.
Yes, yes. And we had the honor of playing this piece not only on that concert, but also we took it to Italy and Austria on tour alongside Florence Price's Symphony Number 1. Let's listen to a little bit of Letter to Florence Price. And then finally, the piece that you just had premiered with us, Flock. And this was a piece that we commissioned not through the Authentic Voice, our partnership with Fear No Music's Young Composer Project, but through the Youth Orchestra Commissioning Initiative, which is a wonderful project that was created by the Portland Youth Philharmonic, and that we were honored to enter as well. And what was really unique about this project is that all of these pieces were meant to be performed and recorded as virtual performances, so that each musician records at home and then a team of editors put it all together. So even before you started writing this piece, you knew that it was going to be performed that way.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Um, well, I feel like something that I've been thinking about in general during the pandemic is like ways that we can feel connected even though we're physically far apart. Um, and I think something that I tend to look to often is things that occur in nature um, that can teach us something about how we relate to each other as well. Um, I think that's just something that inspires a lot of my music. And in this particular case, I was writing it as we were watching flocks of geese first arrive in the spring and their goslings and everything, and then leaving in the fall, and just sort of watching like the patterns that they made as they were flying together, and how they were like moving in a shared direction but slightly far apart, or listening to the geese call, particularly before they even gathered as the flocks, calling from different directions. And I just found that very inspiring to think about when writing the piece.
yeah, yeah, and I love that this theme of interconnectedness between all of us, but also with nature, comes back in your music
Mm-hmm.
because we had similar themes in the Breathing Earth, right? As
Yeah,
our relationship with the planet, and this one continues to explore that interconnectedness.
yeah.
Let's listen to a little bit of this piece, which is available on our YouTube channel in its entirety. Let's listen to a short excerpt. When you were writing this piece, how do you feel like the fact that musicians were going to have to record individually at home, how did that affect your process, if at all?
I think mostly it affected how I approach like the tempo and the rhythm, in terms of trying to have it be like steady all the way through, um, and trying to have stuff that let there be a little bit of space to line up, um, versus, and that would like be enhanced by the experience of doing it separately versus trying to write the same way that I would for the concert stage and just having it happen to be in a different um, medium, sort of leaning into the sense of pulse or the steadiness of that as like, okay, here's this thing that's a given for the piece. Now, what am I going to do inside this sort of box that I constructed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do look forward to performing this piece in person, I have to say. So, three pieces we've had the pleasure of performing at
Mm-hmm.
MYS, and I'm sure there will be more.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about college so far.
Mm-hmm.
What did you encounter that perhaps you didn't expect, that was a little different or surprising? And then this second year, which has been totally like different from anything, right? So let's hear
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like my first year, there's always like things that are different about like when you actually start college to when you maybe envisioned it. Although nothing there was quite so drastic as like when I envisioned for college compared to my experience of college online at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that like a lot of the things that maybe I worried about before I went to college never really came to pass because by the time I got there, I was just more comfortable
Yeah.
um, with just, navigating that kind of experience. But I do think it was definitely a big adjustment. But it, in comparison to the sort of adjustment of the past year, it's felt like a much smaller bump in the sort of course
Sure.
of
Right.
my life.
But what were some of those things going back to, going to college for the first time that you were
Mhm.
like afraid or nervous that would like but didn't come to pass?
Um, well, I guess at some point when I was first looking at schools, I was thinking, well, maybe I want it to be a small school because maybe it would be overwhelming if it's like a lot of people and like at first I thought, well, then maybe I want to go somewhere that's like uh not in a city so it's quiet and not like overwhelming. And then I ended up picking somewhere with like a huge student body in the middle of LA and I loved it. um, I didn't feel like I was disconnected from nature or anything like that. I found it very creatively stimulating and I found it really interesting to connect to the nature that was there in the middle of the city, whether it was just like the squirrels or the different kinds of plants that grow more naturally in that climate. Or like you can ride the train like 45 minutes to Santa Monica and see the ocean. And like being
Yeah.
able to just like go to the ocean to compose was like the most exciting thing ever. So,
That's nice.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. And then suddenly upstate New York,
Mm-hmm.
now nature is what's around you and not a whole lot of, city, I imagine.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
very remote here.
Do you know now that the fall will be back to normal? I mean,
um,
whatever normal means.
yeah, at the moment they're trying to have us back on campus in the fall, but I don't know how things will be. Just
Right.
depends on, in general, like, LA County determines whether the school opens or not, more so than
Yeah.
the school itself.
Wow. Yes. What a journey.
Yes.
I want to ask you, you're a young composer and you actually will continue to be a young composer
Mhm.
for quite some time, which is wonderful. And you've already done a lot. And I'm so excited for you and for the future. What are some accomplishments or pieces so far that you are most proud of?
Um, are you thinking of stuff that's happened or stuff that's coming up that I'm excited about, or both?
Well, both, sure.
Okay. Well, I'm really grateful for the opportunities at MYS, I must say, because I found it such a growth opportunity to be able to write for orchestra. I don't think that that's something that like most young composers get to do most of the time. Like your first opportunity is in college, and then even within college, it's usually like a competition where they pick like a handful of students, usually graduate students, who maybe get to write for the student orchestra there, and it's like usually like maybe the rehearsals happen in like a week and like the piece is done before you even get to talk to the musicians, and
Sure.
it's not quite as much of a collaborative process, and it's also just like there's fewer opportunities that way, so it's so incredible like as a young composer, especially pre-college, to be able to write for orchestra and learn about orchestration hands on rather than like uh, just in the confines of a textbook is really
Right.
exciting.
And to that, I want to add that the work and the passion that comes from Ryan Francis, Jeff Payne, and Kenji Bonch at the Young Composers Project is really extraordinary. They're so amazing.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think the other big thing that I'm really thankful for is Luna Lab as well. It was really, really exciting to like participate in it during the season itself and like get to go to New York City and like hear your piece played there. And
will you explain
Mhm.
briefly what that is, the Luna
Yeah,
Lab?
Luna Composition Lab is like a composition mentorship program nationwide for any young composer that's female and or non-binary or trans. And you'll be paired with an established composer in the field. And there's like several months of like lessons and uh, workshops and stuff like that, and some master classes with composers as well. And then at the end of it, your piece is played somewhere in New York City. In my case, it was National Sawdust, which was just so exciting. I'd
So
never
cool.
even been to New York City before, and to sort of see what composing there was like was really exciting. But they also just really support their um, alumni a lot, and just continues to be a really amazing learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. What's coming up that's really exciting?
Um, well, I have a piece that's being done by Portland Piano International. I think it's in May.
Nice.
Um, and there is also a song cycle that I wrote a couple years ago for Opera Omaha that's being done by Calliope's Call in April, I believe, on Earth Day. It's like in celebration of the Earth. That's the sort of theme of the concert,
Sure.
and sort of awareness of climate change and stuff like that. Um, and then in terms of pieces that I'm working on composing right now, I'm writing a piece for my friend Xenia Gilbert, who's a violinist and composer at the University of Michigan. And I'm also writing a piece for Load Bang. So,
Very cool. That is very exciting. And do you have any thoughts, like sort of like big picture, long term, with what you want to do, or with your career and your art? Do you think about that much, or?
well, I think that I'm kind of exploring a lot still. Um, but I know that I want to do a variety of things. I think that in the past I might have felt, particularly when you're like applying to colleges and you feel like you're supposed to like, I don't know, channel all your energy into one thing. Um, I feel like I felt maybe more pressure to be uh, focused in just one direction versus a sort of like synthesis of creative inspirations. So I guess I imagine myself like continuing to perform. I've started taking some voice lessons recently as well,
Nice.
um, and um, also continuing to compose, whether it's for concert stage or like. I'm also really excited by some of the stuff I'm seeing with like contemporary opera stuff.
Mhm.
But I'm also really inspired by like film scoring, and also really inspired by just like the world of electronic music. And I also started writing poetry lately, which has been really exciting. I used to do a lot more creative writing when I was younger, and then uh, I didn't do that for a while, and I sort of rediscovered that part of myself. So
You just need to be creating all the time,
yeah,
it sounds like.
yeah,
So you are still playing and performing on your instruments.
hmm
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Very nice. Wow. Very cool. Well, we're all gonna be paying attention and following, and hopefully playing more of your music in the coming years. Before I have to let you go, Katie, we have a segment that we do at the MYS Hangout called Sound Advice.
Mm-hmm.
And my question for you is this: if you could travel back in time, whether, I don't know, like middle school or early high school,
Mm-hmm.
and if you could give yourself advice, knowing what you know now about anything, what would that advice be?
I guess one thing is that I might tell myself that, like, you don't have to pick just one interest or just one part of yourself.
Mm.
That, like, you can have multiple facets of yourself, and that the synthesis of that can make you a more interesting artist rather than, like, thinking that whatever makes up you means that you'd be less successful because you're just too many things at once.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That is wonderful advice. I think I absolutely agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And Katie, thank you for taking time to hang out at the
Yeah.
MYS Hangout and to share with our current musicians and our viewers. We are so proud of you and we're so excited about everything that you're doing. And we wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thank you.
So whether you go back to LA in the fall, which I hope you do, or you have to stick around in upstate New York, we know you'll be creating
Mm-hmm.
whatever happens. So that's good news for all of us.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again, Katie. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please mark your calendars. Friday, April 9, 7 p.m. MYS Virtual Gala. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's some information right here. And also, while the credits roll, you'll be able to learn a little bit more. It's free and it's going to be awesome. So I hope you will tune in for that. Thank you again. See you next time.